Alright, you've probably seen like 3 million of these videos, so I'm just gonna get right into this. So, in the Civil War, the biggest killer was dysentery. This is overall because diseases were actually the biggest killer, not bullets, surprisingly, and dysentery killed the most people out of there. On the off chance that you don't know what dysentery is, it's horrible. It's bloody diarrhea. That's not good. Typhoid was the next biggest killer. I'm just going into diseases now because I'm not sure if it actually was, so I don't want to say something that's wrong. Typhoid is transmitted by lice, and there's so much typhoid because they use the same pots they use for food to boil their clothes, so there's still lice in their clothes, in their clothes food. Ague was another killer. Ague was a fever very similar to typhoid, but this one was transmitted by mosquitoes. Now, a big reason why diseases were so prevalent during this time was because, well, doctors weren't sanitary. They didn't wash their hands, their methods were barbaric, they just sawed off arms, not even using any sort of anesthetic. They didn't have a whole lot of antibiotics, so it's not really much you can do in that case. Hey, you heard about that penicillin? Well, you should have. You've done a project on it. But anyway, it was discovered by Alexander Fleming, and it's an antibiotic. I've noticed how sometimes I start to talk really stupidly. You see, penicillin was more of a gateway antibiotic. It didn't have too much of an effect because people didn't really know how to use antibiotics, and because of that, bacteria adapted to it really quickly because it wasn't being administered right. And it really just paved the way for research for bigger and badder drugs. Or bigger and better antibiotics. Or bigger and better antibiotics. I'm not sure. Why, did you think I would be able to actually say my thoughts in a non-awkward manner? Have you heard me talk? Have you heard me talk? I cannot do that. Anyway, there have actually been more refined versions of penicillin since then. They're not used as much as other drugs, but that's because other drugs are just more effective in some areas. Penicillin still has its uses, but... Now going back to what I said earlier, doctors didn't wash their hands too much. Because they didn't think that it was doing anything to wash their hands. They didn't think it was making their hands cleaner. They just thought it was running water over it. So, somebody was like, hey, there's all these disgusting things all around. These are probably on our hands, too. And that person got laughed at. To be fair, that person, Dr. Oliver Wendell Holmes, didn't really have any hard evidence on this. It was more of a suggestion. So, yeah, he could get laughed at. But then in the late 1840s, which is 19 or so years later, Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis had two things. First off, a terrible name, and second off, evidence for that theory. That didn't stop him from being laughed at, though. So he decided to run an experiment on it, and then, death rates plummeted greatly. I think it was 33% to 1. Probably below 1. So since it was such a great help in surgery, people figured, hey, this will probably help when, just doing general things so that we get less sick. And they were correct. Now, how do antibiotics work? Well, they work by just destroying structures that people don't have, but bacteria does. This is kind of a double-edged sword because it also kills good bacteria, which does exist. So it's not always good to just apply penicillin everywhere like they did back then. Going off topic for a bit, I never understood the phrase double-edged sword because I'd imagine that swords have two edges regardless, because there's one edge on one side and one edge on the other side. Even if the expression is actually double-bladed sword, that's still kind of two edges of a blade, These antibiotics have pretty much destroyed some diseases so that we don't get them. I'm going to list out a bunch of antibiotics here, so you can just stop listening because that's boring. First off are penicillins. Yeah, they eliminate infections causing bacteria. Cephalosporins. They're used to treat certain bacterial urinary tract infections and skin infections. The only reason why I'm really making all these voices when I'm saying these things is that so I don't bore myself half to death. It has a side effect of not boring you half to death either. Just boring you all to death. Next are tetracyclines. Tetracyclines? Tetracyclines. I don't know. But they're used to treat many different bacterial infections, such as urinary tract infections. Oh, that one's here again. Acne, gonorrhea, chlamydia, and others. Next is aminoglycosides. The reason why I'm not a scientist is not necessarily because I don't like science, it's because I can't pronounce any of these things. They inhibit bacterial protein synthesis. You should probably be able to figure this out by now, but what that basically does is it pretty much just stops a cell, because it can't make more of itself. Next are macrolides. Ah, I can pronounce one of them! They're useful in treating respiratory, skin, soft tissue, sexually transmitted, H. pylori, and atypical microbacterial infections. Well, I'm back to not being able to pronounce these things. Clindamycin is the last one. Yeah, I know, I'm glad that it's the last one too. It treats certain serious antibacterial infections. That was a lot of boring things. Now, on to the next part of the question. The other thing that we can do, apart from antibiotics, to keep us more healthy, is just kind of to be more clean. Like, use more soap. Maybe brush your teeth more. Or you could, like, take a really weak version of the virus you want to be immune to, inject it into you, and have your immune system beat the crap out of it for a while. Okay, there's not much more of this. We're on number 6. There's only 8 problems. Antibiotic resistance. It's a thing that bacteria does when an antibiotic is just used enough. Whether it's underused, overused, improperly used, or just used, then it'll eventually gain resistance to it. So we have to think of different things. This is a bit worrying because eventually we're just going to run out of cures for this stuff, or we're just not going to be able to refine stuff like current cures anymore. Or something's going to happen where we just can't get something to kill this out fast enough, and then it wipes out all of us. How happy. Okay, this is number 7, and it's a really short one. I'm sure you're happy about that. Antibacterial containing stuff is not really that much better for, containing the spread of infections. Better compared to, like, soap and water, is what I'm talking about. Now, antibacterial containing products, it's stuff like dish soap, so like Ajax, or whatever other dish soap things are. Oh my god, I just realized. Ajax? He kind of destroyed Greece. Not really destroyed, but he beat the crap out of Greece for a bit. And, well, Grease is a thing on dishes. And the thing's called Ajax. How slow am I for just getting that? These do kill most bacteria, like 99.9%, but a large majority of the bacteria around is good bacteria. And good bacteria is good, and you don't want to destroy things that are good. So. Okay, last one, but it's the longest one. Oh boy. Oh no. Oh no. I have to pronounce more things. On top of this being long. Staphylococcus aureus is also known as golden staph or MRSA, and Neisseria gonorrhea. Which is the cause of gonorrhea. These two diseases are kind of nasty. One of them is an STD, so of course it's nasty. The other one just apparently sucks. Yeah. They used to both be treated by penicillin, but they're both really resistant to it now because it was just never applied right. Not actually never, but most of the time never applied right. Chances are you got some of the things that starts this somewhere on you. Now, I'm not saying that you have it. I'm just saying that you have the things that could potentially cause it if they got like an open wound or something. Though considering that, you don't hear about that too much, it's not too common, so don't freak out about that or anything. But the reason why this is bad is because there's a lot of it, and we don't have a lot that can stop it. Now, the fun part is when you remember that diseases can mutate, like most other things can. So this could potentially mutate to have some insane side effect that kills us all after infecting us all. Like, I don't know, we all grow wings and then fly directly into the sun. That's stupid, but it's an example. Shush. Now, just because we don't have a lot to stop it right now, and it could potentially mutate to have a more nasty side effect, potentially life-ending, that doesn't mean that it would be the end of all humanity or something like that. Because, well, if it's really that big a deal, I feel like we're just going to not, the whole world's just going to stop screwing around, doing whatever they're doing at the time, and actually focus on not being exterminated for one friggin' second. Now flipping back over to the negative side, there's still a chance that a lot of us would die because it might take us a while to figure out why this is happening, and it would take us a while to actually get this distributed everywhere. And I didn't specify how long it takes to actually, mutate, or actually, run this full course, which could be good or bad. And it might just straight up be too expensive to produce on a mass scale, or require some sort of really rare material so that not everybody can get it. This is a lot of things that could go wrong, basically. Some of these would transfer really easy, like the Staphylococcus aureus. I think I actually pronounced that right. Oh my god. That would transfer fairly easily because where it lives, in the skin and in the nose. So you could accidentally sneeze on somebody, or sneeze on somebody on purpose. That's mean. Or you could, touch somebody and transfer it. That's not a good thing. Gonorrhea can also spread well because it's an STD. Enough said. Though, both of these could be more or less eliminated just by proper hygiene, which, some people have issues with, or by straight up eliminating it somehow, which, we have to find a cure for, so that's not going to happen for a while. The fun part is, whenever we could potentially find a cure for this, it would still eventually become resistant to it again, unless we, again, completely eradicate it. Because some people just wouldn't take their whole medication. They're like, oh, it's fine. I can just throw this syringe in the toilet that I use. Or, I don't know, they just don't apply it properly. Like, they try to shove a pill directly into the bloodstream. That doesn't work. Now, this is mostly human error, but still partially, it's just insane to do it. It's mostly human error because, people don't do the whole medication thing or do it wrong. And then it's partially not our fault because to constantly maintain the level of hygiene that you need for this, you need to basically just not be doing anything dirty ever. So. And lastly, the one question that seems almost unrelated to this, but whatever, whatever. There's something in your gut called probiotics. They might actually have a role in preventing or just straight up removing drug resistance or drug-resistant infections. But we're not sure yet because we haven't studied enough. And that's the end. You can stop listening to me talk. Are you tired of my voice yet? I know I am. With this video, I have wasted 13 minutes of your life that you will never get back.